I think it's clear now that in a really large number of these rescue sites, they are officially moving from a rescue operation to a recovery one. If you were watching our I-24 coverage last night, you may have seen that we were at this very same spot, a 5-story apartment building, where they were holding out hope of finding 2 survivors that they had located, a mother and her adult daughter. Very sadly, I have an update on that story for you, which was they did locate them, but they sadly had already died. And so now that recovery operation is underway. Those stories becoming more and more common now, given it has been almost 7 days. But there still are some real miracles I can report, including down the road in Adiyaman. In the past hour, we've heard 2 young sisters were pulled from the rubble, also a 7-year-old boy. A few hours before that, a 7-month-old baby. So look, in some areas they are still going and trying desperately to find anyone else clinging for life, but hope is really now beginning to fade, including here in Malatya where I am. It's becoming increasingly challenging to find more people alive.
Of course. Again, the conditions not helping at all. I know it's freezing there overnight. Look, this feels in bad taste to even take the conversation in this direction at this point, Trent, given just the magnitude of this disaster. But we're seeing reports of anger, building up towards authorities there over their response. I mean, how severe of a result is that at this point?
Well, look, I think what I'm observing and hearing is that there is a little bit of a difference in the response, of course, between the large cities and some of those more remote rural communities. I mean, and that is in some ways understandable. It's always more difficult to get aid and rescue crews into places that are remote, including some of those small villages very close to the Syrian border. That is where those pockets of anger are. I mean, in Malatya, where I am, they were pretty quick to get on the scene here and begin rescue efforts. So I haven't sensed much anger among survivors. There's more just a camaraderie, if you will, and a sense of community of people trying to sort of stick together, make food and tea for one another and try to keep warm inside of their tents. But I think as each day passes now, people are starting to realise that the shell shock initial phase is probably passing, and they have to now begin the serious conversation and discussion about how to rebuild their lives in a more permanent way. And I imagine that as those conversations take place, you will have more anger and disappointment. Worth mentioning, of course, so President Erdogan does keep telling these people, these earthquake survivors, that he will rebuild their homes within 1 year. It's an extraordinary promise, but he does keep making it.
Yeah, that is an extraordinary promise. And one that maybe speaks to another question that's been top of mind is a lot of people saying, and again, it feels somewhat tasteless to bring up these angles of it while there's still such a fresh disaster surrounding you, but Erdogan himself, that his political future may even be dependent on how this is all perceived at this point. Is that part of the story?
Look, I mean, I have to say, on the ground, I don't think people really want to talk politics too much, which is understandable. But obviously at a higher level, in Turkish politics and the commentariat, those conversations are happening, certainly in Turkish media, in some sectors. The election is now just months away. Some discussions around whether it will have to be postponed. I think it's worth mentioning, of course, that we've had all of these arrests of building contractors under allegations of criminal negligence. Some of the president's critics and political opponents have, said, obviously, there are areas in the building industry that need to be examined, but let's not use that as a deflection point for any criticism that is also being directed at the government. So look, again, it's politics. Those discussions and debates and arguments probably will start to heat up more and more with each day that passes. But yeah, as you say, on the ground level right now for these rescue workers and survivors, I think they're just trying to work out what to do for the rest of today, the rest of tomorrow, let alone the longer term.
Yeah, just not the concern, what's happening in halls of politics. Trent Murray, thanks for being with us as always out there. Really appreciate your reports. Now we go to Yaakov Polnitsky. He's a volunteer medic with Rescuers Without Borders who came from Israel. Here he's in Adiyaman, Turkey, if I believe, one of the towns up there heavily affected. Thanks for being with us. I know it's been a busy time for you, so appreciate any minutes you're able to spend with us and our viewers. What's the Israeli delegation at large? I mean, mainly doing now. I know your Rescuers Without Borders is a part of it. This is almost a week after the disaster now. What's the mission today?
So the mission today, as you said, I'm with SSF, Rescuers Without Borders. So the mission today is actually to help alleviate the current medical staff that are working nonstop 24/7, just as we are. We set up a tent right outside the hospital, also sleeping here in the brutal cold, and we're working nonstop to try and save people from the wreck and also in the ICU. I'm currently stationed here with 2 doctors from Italy, also working in the ICU in the red zone. As Trent said before about the two girls that were saved in Edi Amman, I actually saw these two girls. Amazing story. They were actually saved from the wrecks and surviving on sugar for 7 days. It came out unscathed, as we say, for lack of a better term, pure miracle. So we are still trying to see hope and see how we can help people and save as many lives as possible. Yeah,
absolutely remarkable. That is, so much despair and destruction. A glimmer of a great part of the story when people like that have been discovered. I know the Israeli team has set up a field hospital, and it seems, as you mentioned, helping people basically. Where's the Israeli team not making an effort? Is it still in the rescue and recovery? Is it, these wider treatment things? Is there a psychological aspect? I mean, what's the scope, of what you're all up to there?
So we're trying to cover all aspects. We're trying to cover the wreckage aspect, and we have people that are searching for people that are stuck in the wreck. Yesterday, I was also looking for somebody in the wreckage site. We managed to find somebody, but sadly didn't survive. And also we are trying to help here the staff in the hospital, in the ICU. In addition, we're also trying to get humanitarian supplies, so blankets, food, anything that the Turkish people, the Turkish survivors might need. We're trying to cover up all aspects of anything and everything that these people might need in these dire times.
What are you seeing? I mean, there's some reports, with the scope of the destruction, the thousands of buildings taken down, that there's large groups of people essentially setting up tent camps, living on the streets, in these freezing conditions. Is that now a growing part of, the aid effort to help those whose homes have been destroyed that have survived?
Yes, it's a very big part. It's the next phase of the disaster. So the first phase was to try and manage the ICU and all of the people that are coming here and try to save as many lives as possible. And now we're trying to look towards the day after, how we can actually give these people some comfort, some residence, some way to escape the frigid cold and the frigid temperatures that are here during nighttime. There was a big problem here not too long ago that they didn't have water in Edi Amman, so the government actually sent a lot of water, and now that problem has been solved. So it's trying to extinguish one fire after another and trying to see just surviving day by day, seeing the next obstacle and trying to overcome it as much as possible.
That's a serious set of obstacles out there. So I know what you're simplifying major issues that you're up to up there, and appreciate it. You're spending just a little time with us and everything that you and the rest of the team are doing up there. It's a great honor to have you with us, and we're, everyone here in Israel certainly proud of the effort you're putting in up there. So thank you, Yaakov Polnitsky, volunteering with Rescuers Without Borders, just one of the groups up there from Israel.